Welcome, Congresswoman Karen Bass of California. Thank you for joining us today, Congresswoman Bass.
Absolutely. It is a pleasure to be here with Cinémoi.
Since it is Women's History Month, I'm going to go ahead and start with your first question. And in 2008, you actually made history by becoming the first ever African-American woman in U.S. history to serve as Speaker of any legislature. How significant was this for you?
Well, I will tell you, it was a very exciting and scary time because I became Speaker right when the Great Recession was just beginning. I never had any idea that the economy of California was going to be in such peril just 2 to 3 months after I became Speaker. So it was an incredible honor. And I felt the weight of history on my shoulders. And I learned a tremendous amount in the 2 years that I served as Speaker of the Assembly.
And what inspired you to become a community organizer, which led to where you are today?
Sure. Well, I grew up in the time period in the 60s and 70s when activism was on every issue that you could think of, both domestic and internationally. So what I say is it's really how I grew up. It's the time period, the moment in history in which I grew up, which is a very similar moment to the younger generation right now. I think of the George Floyd murder that happened last year and all of the activism around Black Lives Matter, all the activism around immigration reform. So if you want to understand who I was many years ago, I was just like the young people that are out active on those issues today.
And speaking of this, you are a vocal ally of immigration reform, and you just announced you supported the Bicameral U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021. Can you share with us why you hope your colleagues will vote to pass this piece of legislation?
Well, I am very proud to be one of 7 women. We call ourselves the closers. And what that means is that it's our job to close the bill, get all of the votes, and pass it out of the House of Representatives. And so immigration reform is an absolutely critical issue. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. So I've been involved in supporting immigrant rights for many decades. And I'm very proud to sit here as a member of Congress and do that exact same thing.
Why was the Equality Act 2020 important for you?
Well, the Equality Act 2020 is about LGBTQ rights in our country, equal rights, and including the LGBTQ population in the Civil Rights Act. Well, to me, if you are fundamentally for social and economic justice and inclusion, then that means everyone. And so I am very proud to be a co-sponsor of that bill and to have voted for that bill last year and this year. But this year, because we won the White House and won the Senate, I actually think this bill will make it to the president's desk and will be signed into law.
And during 2019 and 2020, you worked, you served as a chair of Congressional Black Caucus. You worked with the Congressional Hispanic, Asian Pacific Islander, and Native American caucuses to demand targeted response to the COVID-19 pandemic. How impactful do you think your virtual town halls, your Zoom webinars, and your Instagram live sessions were?
Well, I will tell you that the issues that we worked on and the way we worked on those issues now is it's understood that that's what should happen. And so the legislation that's being put forward now on COVID includes the policy recommendations that we had from last year.
Okay, and child welfare reform has always been important for you, as you know it has been for Cinemoi's president, Daphna Simon. Can you tell us why you founded the Congressional Caucus on Foster Youth?
Yes, I've worked on the issue of reforming and transforming the nation's child welfare system for many, many years. I think in the United States, the richest country in the history of the world, we should be able to take care of all of the children in the country. And the young people involved in the child welfare system, it's just 500,000 children a year. And we have over 300 million people in our country. So why can't we take care of the 500,000 young people? That's why I'm involved in the issue, and I will continue to be involved in the issue until we transform the system.
So I have one final question for you. And again, as we speak about Women's History Month and International Women's Day approaching, I would like to ask you a question from, a woman in power with your recognition. If you could share with our viewers a piece of advice that you've received that you want to relay, we'd love to hear that.
Well, I think for women that are involved, and I don't care in what level of activity you're involved in, if it's a job that has nothing to do with politics, sometimes we feel like when we walk into a room, and I don't care what room that is, I don't care if it's politics, if it's education, if it's just your job, sometimes we feel like we need to ask for permission to be there. And what I say to women is you hold your head up, your shoulders back, you walk into the room and you act like you own it. And you feel confident that you are there because you deserve to be there. You should never question whether or not you deserve to be in a room. If you're in that room, you're there because you earned it.
Well, Congresswoman Bass, thank you so much for your time. We were delighted to have you here at Cinémoi.
You are welcome, and tell Daphne I said hello.
Thank you so much. Have a nice
Okay,
evening.
bye-bye.